And recording. Well, thank you for taking the time to attend today's info session. My name is Taylor Morgan. I'm the Director of Education Abroad here at TWU. I'm also the main campus advisor for the Gilman Scholarship. So today I'll go over what it is, why it can be helpful for you if you'd like to study or intern abroad, how to go about it, and all of that, the full timeline. There are two cycles. So there's a fall cycle and a spring cycle. So if you don't get to applying this cycle, or if you want to try again, there is a March one, depending on when you go abroad. So this is for the October cycle that is due October 3rd. We'll get to that. So know that there is time to apply because it is kind of a hefty one, but is worthwhile, I think. So, all right. So the Gilman Scholarship is funded from the U.S. Department of State. And the U.S. Department of State will kind of go over, has a particular department that this is their thing. They want to get students abroad, whether that is short term, maybe with faculty. Some of you may be looking at faculty-led programs, or you're choosing a program right now. You're trying to figure out, can I go here in the summer or for a semester? How can I get credit for, traveling the world? They want to provide scholarships up to $5,000. So just remember that it's up to $5,000. It's not always kind of a clean full $5,000 because they really get a lot of applications and they want to kind of spread the wealth. But we'll talk about how you can really strengthen your application so you can get as much money as possible. So up to $5,000 really could cover a good chunk of your program. So we're hoping for that. But it serves any student who has financial need, who wants to go abroad. It says high financial need, meaning you need to be a Pell Grant recipient. We'll talk about that. So the types of students who go abroad, it varies. So let's look at what a Gilman Scholar is, because if you get this award, that's what you'll be and what you'll represent for the U.S. So 100% are Pell Grant recipients. So if you look at your financial aid, your FAFSA for the year, if you were offered the Pell Grant for this year, and you accepted it, you would be eligible for this scholarship. Now, if you are studying abroad in summer, which is when the new financial aid year starts, you'll either want to accept the Pell again, or if you didn't accept it this year, make sure you do accept it for next year. So you have to have received or will receive the Pell Grant. And part of your application is financial aid will verify that. So that's kind of like the big one, Pell Grant recipient, because that is a federal grant that is offered to students, and this is a federal scholarship, so they want to make sure that they're serving these students. Over 50% are first-generation students. The kind of hope with this scholarship is that students who usually don't go abroad are able to go abroad. So over 50% are the first in their family to go to college. 65% come from small towns or rural communities. So there's no like one particular Gilman scholar. The hope is that, students from all different backgrounds and regions and experiences are able to go abroad. So, some of the profiles we've seen in the past, like single parent households. Maybe you have working parents and you're also taking care of your family. Maybe you're a parent yourself. So all types of scholars and all types of institutions. So community college, four-year institutions like TWU, and all majors and career fields as well. So if you're like, are they looking for STEM? We'll get to that. Are they looking for a particular major or field to kind of fill a quota? Not really. It's kind of a mixture of all types of students who are seeking an experience abroad. It's really how you craft your story and like tell them about what your particular experience looks like with your major or career field in your personal journey. That's what's going to get you a scholarship award. So we'll talk about the components of the application. So scholars will study or intern abroad in many, many countries around the world. When we go through the application, you'll see that there are, maybe restrictions on certain countries if it's just not safe to travel there. But pretty much every country, over 170, has been represented in Gilman Scholars. So some of you are probably working with our office or interested, or maybe your faculty has said, hey, we're going as a group to this location. So students choose their location and their credit bearing program. So a program is the whole kind of picture. The course and the travel portion equals education abroad program. So when they ask, are you enrolling in a credit bearing program? Are you getting course credit for whatever you're doing? Are you taking courses abroad? Or are you taking a course here at TWU and traveling with your class? So credit bearing, it's going to your degree plan or your transcript somewhere. That is key. So you need to make sure that that is chosen before you start writing, because you have to talk about the program itself. Where are you going? What are you doing? You have to know that. So if you're still exploring, make sure that you kind of fine tune that and pick something to talk about. Now, if you need to change your program later because you're kind of waffling between two, you can do that. You can change your program after the fact, but you need something to talk about. Students can also opt in to applying for additional funds. These are specific to STEM opportunities and then language opportunities. This isn't as, common for our students. Number one, we don't have a language requirement really at TWU. So language is kind of few and far between. And then STEM really depends on the particular program and what you're doing. And we'll get into that. The good part is there's no minimum time that you need to be abroad. So any of you who are looking at some faculty-led programs, so if you're nursing, or we have some from fashion, if you're going abroad with your faculty for 7 days, 14 days, whatever that looks like, there's no minimum. So you can kind of choose any time of the year. This particular cycle is for students who are leaving like this December through next October. So it'll encompass anyone who's looking to go with a program in the next year. And then scholars also need to talk about the Gilman when they come back, and also just get people excited about studying abroad as well. Tell your peers, tell your community. That's called a follow-on service project. And that's one of the essays that are part of the application we'll talk about. So that's where you become, an engaged scholar within the network of Gilman, where you say, I came back and talked about my experience and how the Gilman got me there. The benefits, though, once you do all that, and we'll break it down, the application, is that you become part of a network of alumni. So you'll hear alumni kind of all over the place with Gilman, but also with TWU. You think like alumni, like I've graduated from TWU, I'm an alum now. But Education Abroad also calls you alumni as well. You've completed an Education Abroad program. You went abroad and now you're coming back, and maybe you're talking about that in your interviews or applications or with your peers. You're getting involved with our office. So alum. The same can be said for Gilman. They have a lot of opportunities for you as an alum. So you've completed the program, you use the scholarship to do that. So they invite you to, career and networking opportunities, special events and seminars just to learn about different things, global issues, maybe specific to your academic area or a field. And you have also access to people, so mentors, a network to kind of just connect with other students as well. And then sometimes there's scholarship discounts for certain, areas of higher education, and some, kind of networking and opportunities like in the federal government as well. So about the program, just background, I mentioned the U.S. Department of State. There's a bureau part of that, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, that, is established to create opportunities like going abroad, where there's educational, professional, and cultural exchange. That's the hope, is that you're able to go abroad, represent yourself, your university, the U.S., And also it's that two-way street, the mutual exchange of learning about another culture, learning about what your field looks like in another country, and just experiencing by learning by doing, right? Which we say at TW. So just building our understanding by going to another country, and that advances the U.S. Foreign policy goals. So that's why this scholarship is kind of honing in on that when we get to the essay prompts. Is like, how are you representing yourself and your experience, and your institution and the U.S. abroad. So when you go to the Gilman site and learn about the Gilman program and the scholarship components, there will be the Gilman Scholarship and then the Gilman McCain. They're pretty much the same. One is just a kind of a different track. What you all most likely will be applying for is the Gilman program. That's the baseline one that everyone applies to. The Gilman McCain is just kind of like a separate track if you're eligible for it. For undergrad students who are either child or spousal dependents of an active or activated U.S. military personnel. So that's just kind of like a special track for those who are eligible for it. And it does kind of give like a flat award. The main program is a bit more flexible where it's not always $5,000. It's kind of, the average we've seen is about $2,500 to $5,000. So you'll still get something that is a good chunk of your program cost. But know that for anyone who's applying for either, the main criteria, your undergraduate students, federal Pell Grant recipients, and again, I mentioned the kind of 2 cycles each year. So they're very similar. If you're confused which you apply to, Gilman program, the main one is what you're kind of focusing on. Now the supplemental awards I'll get to, again, with language and STEM, that is also a track for the main program. So eligibility, gotta double check every bullet point. So if any grad students are here right now, I'm so sorry, this is undergraduate only. That's because it's tied to the Pell Grant, which is an undergraduate only financial aid opportunity. So U.S. citizen or national. So you just need to prove that you've been able to get financial aid from the government. Undergraduate student, federal Pell Grant recipient. And again, you've chosen a program where you're getting course credit for it. Either it's one course or a couple if you're doing a couple over a summer or semester. And then a country that has a travel advisory of 1 or 2. So what does that mean? If you look up their travel.state.gov, you can look up a country and see what their travel advisory is. A travel advisory is kind of a combination of factors. Is there like unrest, crime, even natural disasters? Is it safe to go to that location or maybe even a region of that country? So 1 and 2 is pretty standard for a lot of countries. If there is a 3 or 4, usually a 3, we can make a special case, but our office and faculty offer 1 and 2, so you don't really have to worry about that. And then no minimum program length. So even if it's 7 days or a whole academic year, you're eligible to apply. And again, with that kind of offshoot of Gilman McCain, it's the same U.S. citizen or national undergrad student, but who is a child or spousal dependent of an active military, and you receive financial aid. So that includes the Title IV financial aid is stuff like Pell Grant and work study. And again, you're earning credit. It's in a travel 1 or 2 and no minimum program length. So really, you're only doing this particular application if you are a dependent of military. Now, supplemental awards. This is in addition to that main award. So if the main Gilman program is up to $5,000, that's where we're aiming for. Give me between $2,500 to $5,000. But if you are eligible for the supplemental, you could get up to 3,000 for the CNLA, which is the Critical Need Language Award. So foreign policy goals, we want more citizens who are able to be multilingual. And that helps in your career as well. So the critical need languages are ones that we just need more people to be fluent in. We have plenty of kind of like the like more popular languages that we see. So these are the eligible languages for this particular award. So if you are looking at a program in primarily Japan or South Korea is what we'll see for this list, and you are taking like a beginner course, you would be eligible to apply for this, but you would have an extra essay to talk about, what you're doing, why you're taking it, why this language is needed, how you'll use it in your career, etc. So this one is few and far between because we don't have a lot of languages that really come back for credit at TWU. But if you're still taking it just for credit for your transcript, talk with us and we'll figure out if you're eligible for this. Another one that is a supplemental award that can get kind of confusing is the STEM coursework and internship award. So this is up to $1,000 extra. So we're trying for up to $5,000 for the main plus up to $1,000 for STEM related coursework. Sometimes with the lab element, they've also expanded it for internships as well. You need to have specific research that you're doing. You can't just be a STEM major. It has to be what you're doing abroad will have some kind of project based, like research based element. And that's part of your credit bearing program. So the STEM majors is open to STEM and non-STEM majors, but the work needs to be related to a STEM field. The hard part is that it needs to be something that you specifically are working on and is seen as a STEM field. So for example, if you're a nursing student, unfortunately, nursing is not coded as a STEM major by the US government. So if you were on a nursing program or you're doing nursing coursework or an internship, you wouldn't be eligible for the STEM award because it's technically not STEM under that umbrella. But if you're doing, biology, nutrition, anything kind of under the STEM umbrella, this would apply. So another few and far between, but not impossible. So just chat with me if you're like, am I eligible for this? And we'll work on that extra essay. So how to apply? So there's the application element that you'll compose and submit by the deadline. And then there's certification. So basically people at the university are confirming that everything that you uploaded is legit. So the application is your program information. Remember, you need to select where you're going, what you're doing. And then the essay responses, and we'll break that down. Unofficial transcripts, you don't have to order and pay for like an official one, just your updated transcript to now. And then you choose your campus advisors. Now in the portal, the Gilman portal, the only options that we've kind of funneled right now would be me. So just select me for your study abroad advisor. And then Camille from financial aid, Camille Langley is our financial aid advisor. So that's pretty easy. Just drop down, pick whomever's available. And so once you submit your full application, all the components by October 3rd this year, we get emails as the submissions come in. But after the 3rd, we have a full week to go in and confirm. So I say like, yep, they're planning to do nursing Costa Rica. So I know that that's the price and they're getting credit and it's safe to go. I certify. Our financial aid advisor does the same, where they're like, yep, they, receive the Pell Grant and they have this financial need. You will need to put some cost in there. So you'll need to know what the cost of your program is, like everything. So they'll confirm like, yep, they have financial need. Like the normal cost of attendance at TWU has been, expanded because they're adding on this abroad opportunity. Please give them money to fill in the gaps. So they're not considered, the applications aren't reviewed until certifications are gone through. Not to worry, Camille and I are on it. So we get the notifications and it's on our calendars. And so we go in and certify. You don't have to say like, I've submitted it. Can you please certify? we'll definitely take care of that for you. But go ahead and check if it gets down to like the last day and it's not there, poke us. But we will certify and make sure that your application is ready to review. So the application essays, this is something that like we do this session early so that you can start working on it. It used to be 3 big to small essays. Now they've kind of broken them out this year into 4 smaller essays. 4 sounds daunting, but it's not daunting if you really think about where you're going and what you're doing and why you're doing it. So that's kind of the crux, is like, sure, there's this opportunity that's been presented by my faculty, or sure, I've always wanted to study abroad in London or South Korea. But why? That's what they want to know. So in these 4 short essays, the first one is your motivations for studying or interning abroad. What are you studying here? What's your major? What are you studying abroad? Why? Why do you need to go to South Korea to study psychology? Some students would be like, well, they're offering this class that TWU doesn't have, and I really need to take this class because it relates to what I want to do when I graduate. So motivations, and maybe it's personal too. It doesn't have to be academic. They want to see academic, professional, and career related, but also the personal. How can you grow your just personal and interpersonal skills? So that's number 2, knowledge and skill development through going abroad. What are you doing? Why does it matter? What skills are you bringing? What do you want to work on? I want to work on my independence. I want to work on my like critical thinking skills of like, how do I survive in, Spain by myself? So give some context and some like a story there to show like what you have, what you want to work on, what you hope to gain. And the third is the kind of citizen diplomat essay. And, in the past, it's talked about like, what's that mutual exchange I mentioned? So like, what are you doing abroad to intentionally learn about like your host culture and the people around you, and to, increase your understanding of where you're living. But then also, how are you sharing you as a person, you as a TWU student, you in your different intersections of identities, and also you as like a representative of the US. And next year, in 2026, is the 250th anniversary of the US. 1776 is 2026 next year. So they specifically ask like, how will you also like talk about the history and like, the US? And so maybe it's talking about dialing down to Texas and saying like, well, I'm, Texan, or I'm from this area, and like, it's the United States. I mean, we haven't been states for 250 years, but you can talk about like, we're composed of all these different areas that are different. Here's my experience. So whatever that looks like for you. And the fourth is that follow-on service project that I mentioned. So the contributions to the US communities when you come back. Is that your campus community? Are you talking to your peers, maybe a student org or a scholar program about like, your time abroad and how the Gilman and other scholarships and all the hard work you did got you there? The impact of it, you're like, well, I've made these connections, or like this expanded my, worldview this way, or I'm approaching my major and my studies differently because of this. So how will you talk about that when you come back? And it's not just, here's my experience abroad. It's also how the Gilman got you there. So if you get the award, they want to see that follow through. And it does happen when you come back. They're like, did you finish your follow-on service project? Did you go talk to people or create a guide or presentation or a program, an initiative, whatever it looks like? So, you can work with me to brainstorm that. If you're like, I have absolutely no clue, we can help with that. We need to talk about it. The application essay for the language award, again, are like, what are your motivations for learning that language? What's your plan to develop those language skills? While studying abroad, how are you immersing yourself in that language? And so you have some extra optional questions if you're eligible for that. The same with the STEM, you have to summarize what your research, your STEM related research or internship looks like. So there needs to be some kind of meat and some details there. So quick tips always double check the components. If they say, here's the essay prompt and there are sub questions, they're looking for you to answer the sub questions. So make sure you answer every part of the essay prompt. So double check the requirements, make sure you're eligible for, the main Gilman program, but also those supplemental, and answer all of the prompt questions. And there might be word limits. So there were like 500, 300, whatever those max are. My biggest piece of advice is, don't go over, but also don't go super under. I am a reviewer for a lot of different scholarships that are either at TWU or these external scholarships like this one. And I'm so bummed when I see students just don't maximize the word count. Like if they give you 600 characters and you only write 300, I'm like, oh, you had so much space to like really dig in and give us more, because the reviewers want to walk away in the limited time you have with these short essays, knowing a little bit about who you are. You're not generic nursing student. You're not generic nutrition student. You are, this person who has these passions and these goals, and we need to give you money to go abroad to make your dreams happen. Pretty much what you needed to say. So make sure that you're answering those subcomponents of the prompts, because they matter. And how you compose it obviously helps with kind of your story, and be like, oh yeah, I really can see them. They're passionate about this. They need to go abroad. And so work with your campus advisor and myself. Also, if you have faculty, who are kind of composing a program for you, work with them. Why are you doing what you're doing, even if it's still kind of being confirmed now? So I have some insight into what they look for, but also with like proofreading, like get lots of sets of eyes on your essays. I know you're super busy and sometimes you're just like, oh, I'm going to put together the night before. Please don't do that. The essays I've seen that have gotten like a couple of drafts get awards. And so have your faculty look, have one of your advisors, myself or our Education Abroad advisor, Alex. I'm actually going to say priority is have the right site look for you as well to give some feedback. So if you need to kind of brainstorm, be like, how do I even just like get the kind of themes and like components ready? Feel free to talk with me about that. But when like composing and proofreading your essay, go to the experts, the right site, and I'll have some more info on that later. So selection criteria. Now you've submitted it and they're reviewing your application. So what gets awards? After you submit, October 3rd, October 10th, a week after is when we certify. And then once all those certified applications are in, then reviewers from all over the US will review your application. There's a kind of a pair of people who review a set of applications. I'm a reviewer for the Gilman, so I won't review any of yours. I will review students from other schools around the US. And we usually get about 70 per pair. That's kind of like an insight and some quick numbers into your like, well, this seems like nationally competitive because it is. So what's the likelihood of me getting selected? They receive an average of about 1,500 apps from around the US, and I'd say 25% actually get awards. But it's not impossible because every year TWU gets Gilman Scholars. So we've seen like a range of, I said, $2,500 to $5,000 to get something if you're awarded. And each cycle, we usually get maybe 12 to 15 TWU students applying that will get a full application submitted. And that 25% kind of is represented in that as well, where about, a fourth of those get awards. So it is competitive, but, the work you put into reviewing it and kind of working on it, not the week before, really helps you. So this last year we had, I think, 12 or 13 apply for each cycle. In the full year, we got 9. So, 9 students went abroad with the help of Gilman. So The selection criteria, again, have you talked about the impact of this particular program and this particular location on you? So you have to know what your goals are in your like career trajectory, even if you're like, I just got here, I'm a first or second year, or I'm still figuring out what my focus is in my field. Talk about that. Talk about what that looks like, what you're kind of exploring, or if you've decided it. I have a student who in the past is like, I'm in nursing school, but I know like my thing is women's maternal health. So she talked about why going abroad was like absolutely important to learn about, maternal health in this other country because it will help her be a better practitioner. So the impact of that particular program and going abroad in your particular goals, your preparedness for the program, because it does ask you again those skills. Like it's the age-old question: what's a difficult situation that you've been in, and how did you come through it? So this is one of those opportunities, and it's really uncomfortable to be vulnerable and share like yourself, and that's really hard to talk about. But talking about the good, bad, and ugly paints that full picture they want to see. So how are you prepared? You need to say like, well, I've worked on this or I've overcome this in the past. So like I'm ready to go abroad by myself for a semester, or I'm ready to, travel with my peers and like really focus on this because like I've worked really hard to get here. And then again, representing America and the hometown impact is that follow on coming back. So that's that mutual exchange. How are you learning and representing yourself abroad? How are you coming back to talk about it? And then the extras with the language and the STEM, just showing the kind of worth there. Deadlines. So the main application cycle coming up soon, October 3rd, that's end of day. Now on our website, and I will send also as you start applying, I send kind of some updates like, hey, reminder. And I usually put on there like 11:59 Pacific time is like 1 a.m. So it's technically 1:59 on the 4th. But please just try to get in early and it's off your plate. So the 3rd by end of day, and then we certify, and then the actual review cycle, it takes the rest of the semester. So be prepared that if you need to like apply to anything, start paying, this also isn't guaranteed money. So make sure you have plans for all of that, knowing that in December, you'll get notification and then the funds themselves. So it takes about a month and a half for the Gilman advisors to review the scholarship applications. So know that once it's done on the 3rd, you're just waiting and we'll see, and I'll keep you updated. So some final resources, and then we'll get into questions. You can connect with Gilman to ask them any questions, any of the especially application related. If you're like, what about this? What are you looking for here? Also, once you start applying and I have kind of those updates, I give some kind of like tips where like, and what you need to select in the application. So you can also ask me as well. But that's all the Gilman kind of contact information. But again, I'm your main advisor, so feel free to email me if you have any questions. And our main website, Education Abroad, has a paying for your program page that goes over all the scholarships that are available. Kind of look through. It's daunting because there's a lot. This is a big one if you're eligible for it. But on that paying for your program tab, there's also a link to a packet that's kind of like a big overview of like some tips and tricks for the kind of big scholarships. So you can find more info there. But just know I'm kind of the main contact for this cycle. And then the right site. So you can book individual meetings with them, or even like if you're like, I don't have time for an actual face-to-face or Zoom meeting, you can upload essays as well. So explore the resources there. But we also have some more events coming up that can help with this. So next week, speaking of the right site, we're working with them to do a scholarship workshop next Thursday. We didn't plan to do all of our things on Thursdays at lunch, but it just kind of happened for these two. But it is a workshop in that like we'll talk about like the uncomfortable how to talk about yourself that you need for these essays. But then there's also time to actually brainstorm and like do some writing. So it's on Zoom and on the Denton campus. These advanced links go to via our Education Abroad portal, so you can get all the information there and get the links there. But that is kind of a come as you can scholarship workshop to just kind of actually start brainstorming and get like, okay, what are my goals? Like, how do I want to talk about myself and my experience? And the components you need not only for the Gilman Scholarship, but any Education Abroad scholarship you need and any scholarship application. So it's kind of general practice for scholarship applications, but we'll have some Education Abroad examples. And then we're working with the Student Money Management Center the next week to talk about financing education abroad, not only talking about scholarships, but like budgeting. So if you're like, what is my full cost? I need to think about all the components of how I'm going to do this and where I'm getting the money. That's also on campus or on Zoom. We usually record all of these. The workshop will be more like interactive, so likely not recorded. But please take advantage of RightSide if you can't make that particular event. And the same with Financing Education Abroad. The Student Money Management Center is very, very helpful. So those are our final resources. I'll stop sharing and then let me adjust this real quick. So if you can unmute if you have any questions. Okay, real quick question. Very fair. I honestly can't imagine what a service project looks like. And and to clarify that, so service project looks like abroad or follow-on when I return. So the service project actually won't be when you're abroad, so you don't have to worry about like an actual project when you're there. The follow-on service project, the service part is like, how are you serving your community when you get back? So it's really, what's your plan? And you need to detail the who, what, when, where, why of what you're going to do when you come back and how you're going to talk about it. So that's something that you don't have to, figure out like how I'm going to talk about it because you need to go abroad and have the experience and come back. Some examples off the cuff right now, students reach for what's available. So we just had a student come back and she talked to the student org for her major. So you can do a presentation. We have an Education Abroad fair. It's coming up October 1st this year. So there's a fair. So you can like be at the fair and talk about your experience, talk about Gilman. So that kind of face-to-face. Some students, they've created like brochures or blogs or vlogs as well. So if you want to do like kind of a social media type series, you can do that. Sometimes even just resources where they're like, I'm doing a brochure or guide and it doesn't have to be a campus community. Sometimes they're like, I'm going back to my high school or elementary, like K-12 or my religious community or this like organization where I'm a leader or mentor. So figure out the audience and then figure out like why you want to get them excited to go abroad, especially if it's like the youth, if you're like, this is for you too. Like I found this resource and I did the hard work and I found the people to help me like go abroad. It's meant for you too. And that's the point, is that like this study abroad is meant for everyone. So we can brainstorm that. And then how in depth does it need to be? Any specific regulations? On the Gilman website, they do all the essays, give some examples of like kind of what they look for, but specifically the follow-on service project, they give some examples. So you don't have to have it all figured out now. You can say like, I plan to, and then if it changes by the time you get back and you actually need to like follow through on the project, that can change. They're completely flexible with that. But you can say like, I've thought about this. I'm not going to keep it open-ended. They see intentionality. So you can say like, I plan to go back to my marching band. We had a student who did this. I'm going back to my marching band where I'm a color guard instructor, and I'm going to talk to my students about, when you get to college, not only, hey, come to TWU, but also we have opportunities here. This got me abroad. Here's how it applied to my major. And so they did like kind of a series of events and like kind of info sessions there. So it's the who, what, when, where, why, who you're working with. I'm gonna work with my band director to have some meetings with these students. I'm gonna work with the Education Abroad office to get some more materials and maybe some free swag. So just figuring out those details is really what they want to see. And maybe if it's like as specific as possible to like a special community or cohort, not just I'm coming back to talk to the TW community. It's like, well, where and why and when? So we can talk through how in depth that needs to go. Does it cover the entire cost? Good question. It really varies. So it depends on your program. So your program could be a $4,000 program with your faculty because you're only going for, a couple of days or weeks. So the whole cost could be $4,000. So Gilman could effectively cover the entire cost. Now, if you're doing a full summer, where you're doing 8 to 12 weeks, the whole summer, even just a chunk of the summer, maybe now that's $6,000 or $8,000 for everything. Or maybe you're doing a full semester and it's $16,000. So it really varies the length and the location you go, because some places are going to be more expensive. Costa Rica is a very cost-effective, beautiful place. London is also a really fun place, but very expensive. So it's one of those things where you kind of plan ahead to gather all the free money and stack it up, knowing that there may be some cost that needs to happen from scholarships or out of pocket or saving or from financial aid. So yeah, once you pick your program, we'll figure out how you need to pay for it and what chunk Gilman could potentially cover. And there's no limit to it either. All right. Is there somewhere I can find detailed prompts for the essays? Yes, on the website. So the website has like the breakdown of, like I said, the prompts and like the sub questions. So they just updated those. I think our packet I need to update because they kind of mixed up some of the essays, but you can find them before you even start the application. So you can kind of copy those, start brainstorming, and see what you need to work on, what you need to identify. Okay, any other questions? I'm going to grab the last question, Camille's last name. I'm going to get our info and last names for you real quick. But any other questions, feel free to unmute if you have any. Put more in the chat. Great question, Raina. So you can reapply. So I mentioned there's 2 cycles. So October, and if any of you are planning for, spring, but especially summer or even next fall, this is the perfect time to apply. Please try to get an app in for October, because when you get money early, you can apply, you can pay for your program, because usually whether it's a short-term faculty-led or if you're working with us to choose one from our catalog from our providers, they usually want you to be fully paid up by like a couple months or like a month to 3 months before you go. So you don't want to wait to the March cycle if you're going in, summer, when you're stepping foot on a plane in May, and you're like, I don't know, because you won't get those funds until May. So definitely try to apply this October, but there is a second chance if you need to reapply in March. So if you get no award, like you just weren't selected this cycle, you can reapply. Now, if you were awarded, but it's like $3,000 and you're like, but I wanted 5, you can't reapply for like a higher award. And that's the case for any scholarships. That's the case for the TWU Education Abroad Scholarship too. So you can reapply if you just didn't get it at all. So yeah, you can try again in March, and just plan accordingly if you're like, I need to find money to pay, depending on your timeline for your program. So yeah, where can we find the different locations we can apply to study abroad in? Great question as well. So I'm going to real quick, and hopefully this is going to upload here. I'm going to do load a file. My gosh, found it. So we have on the packet the contact information for the advisors, Camille and myself. But then also, if you are still exploring and you're trying to find what your program is, our portal has, let's see. Okay, in the chat, I've uploaded that, but it's also on our website. But in the portal, there's an intake quiz, like a matching quiz where you're like, this is what's important to me, this location, or I want to get this type of credit, or I want the most cost effective, or I want to go for the summer or a full year. You can kind of play with that and it'll spit out some options for you, but then you can also just look through the options. So lots of locations on lots of continents, so there's no easy answer there. So you can explore there, and I'll also drop in the chat our actual website. So you can just go to the portal there. There's that. Any other questions? Okay, I'll also drop in the chat real quick. It's everywhere. So these slides and the recording will be on our website later, but especially if you were anyone RSVP'd on VIA or anywhere, I'll try to email these as well. But here's my email in the chat if you have any questions. But thank you for coming today, and work with myself or our advisor, Alex, to figure out your program. But that's definitely the first hurdle: is where are you going, what are you doing, and then we'll help you actually talk about it in your essay and apply. So have a good weekend, good Friday, and more info will be on our website next week. Thanks, guys.